Chair, roll call. Esther Adams, excused. Laura Benfield,
Present.
Gail Brewer, excused. Margot Brown Tunstall,
Present.
Margot Carrion, excused. Jacqueline De Leon, Melissa Del Val Ortiz,
Here.
Anderson Deng, Kevin Douglas,
Here.
Thomas Dowd, Gideon Dunkley, Jeffrey Eaton, excused. Anthony Foreman, Joseph Guagliardo,
Here.
Tessa Hackett Vieira, Gregory Hambrick,
Here.
Helen Hartman Konowski,
Here.
Barbara Jackson excused, Letitia James excused, Pamela Johnson, Candice Julian, Melinda Katz excused, Monica Major, Annie Meredith excused, Marilyn Mosley,
Here.
Edwin Murray excused, Sandy Myers,
Here.
James Otto excused, Dr. Mahendra Patel,
Yes, please.
Roxanne Prasad, Joseph Pierre,
Yes.
Jason Price,
Here.
Delia Soto,
Here.
Melissa Talbot,
Here.
Melissa Mark Viverto, excused, Peter Weiss, excused, Viria Williams,
Here.
Bernice Williams Johnson,
Here.
Clary Phillip, present. Mr. Chair, the rule is this.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. I want to thank everyone for coming. I should mention this prior. You notice that there's a videotape camera in the middle of the floor there. There is a new legislation that states that all public meetings go forward need to be videotaped, and also will be subsequently added to the website for streaming purposes. We will discuss in more detail as we get to the Governance Committee report as to that legislation, and I know we have representation here that can elaborate a little bit more than on that. It's also been stated in the email that went out, so just didn't want it to come as a surprise to anyone as to the reason that we're taping. I want to welcome everyone to the meeting, my first official meeting as chair and the first official meeting of this newly elected executive board. I look forward to fulfilling the responsibilities of this position and try to do my best to fill the shoes of my esteemed predecessor here, who's done a great job for so many years in that position. I look forward to feedback. You're going to notice as we go through the meeting, whatever's not broke, we're not trying to fix it. We're certainly going to just look to really engage the board members as much as possible to do the work that you've been so committed doing. Look forward to feedback and ideas that you may have to certainly move the meeting along and address issues that we're passionate about. I know it's a little warm in here, somewhat uncomfortable, so we'll certainly try to move the meeting along to minimize that. First order of business is the acceptance of minutes. It's all been sent to you, and it's also listed in your packet. And hopefully you've had an opportunity to review that. So if so,
Can I go on a motion to accept?
Second.
motion made by Gargiulo, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? There being none, so moved. There's no room for correspondence, so I'm going to move into our next section, section 2, where we're going to have a presentation of our financial and program quarterly report.
name is Justin Walter. I am the Assistant Commissioner for Finance at DYCD, and I will deliver the financial report. This is essentially the third quarterly report that I'm presenting to the board for this fiscal year. This is for city fiscal year 14. In city fiscal year 14, we have $33.9 million of funds available. But we have a total budget of just over $35 million because some of our funding had rolled over from the prior fiscal year. The CSBG total budget is broken down between program contracts, other contractual services, and personnel services. In program contracts, we have about $28.8 million this year, $1.5 million in other contractual services, and $4.7 million in personnel services for folks who work here at DYCD. In our program contracts, we have 290 contracts. 211 of those are neighborhood development group contracts. Year to date, we have $22.9 million in expenses of our $28.8 million budget, and we've made $25.2 million worth of payments. The difference between payments and expenses is that we give initial advances at the beginning of the year, so providers can have some cash at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're in the process now in the final quarter of recovering those at the end of the year. The payments we've made and the expenses we have will be equalized, so it will be the same. So right now we're about 75% of total spending, which is where we'd expect to be, and we expect to be just about on budget. We have about $6.4 million yet to be paid, and those claims will come to DYCD for the months of May and June in the next 2 months, and then we'll be finished with the fiscal year 14. I am free to take any questions that anyone has.
Any questions, concerns about the financial report? No? Thank you, Justin, I appreciate it. One of the things that we discussed when the executive committee had their first meeting, numbers are hard to digest when you look at it for the first time. So in your reports that are going to be emailed to you, we ask that these reports be sent as part of that email, so at least you have a little bit of time to look at the financials. And we're also looking to have comparative figures. So this report compared to the report that's going to be presented at the next meeting, so at least you can look at the comparisons, and that may give you a better idea of how the financials look and maybe open up any questions or any concerns you may have. So if there are no further questions, is there a motion to accept the financial report?
So moved.
Second?
So it's been motion and it's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? There being none, so moved. I'm happy that Commissioner Chong is present with us today, so I'm going to ask that he presents his report to the board.
I'll just make a few points. Again, want to congratulate Greg and the members of the executive committee. It's always good to bring new blood, in my experience, in nonprofit and government. And again, thank you to Joe for many years of service. Great to see many of you. I apologize for the lack of circulation. Our landlord's trying to get rid of us, so this might be part of the plan. But I just want to point out a couple of things that happened since the last meeting in March, I believe. The mayor released the executive budget in early May, and there are good news for DYCD beyond the programs that you oversee. One is that we got $145 million to expand after-school programs, and the good news is that we've selected winners. The Mayor's Office of Contract Services has signed off, and next week the Mayor will be having a press conference to announce the new initiative and the rollout of 271 new programs this fall. Will be, when all is said and done, will be in 85% of all the middle schools in the city of New York. Quite an achievement. And then the other major development is that the mayor added $8.5 million for summer youth employment, and we're hoping that Kevin and his group gets us a little bit more. They were out in the rain yesterday outside City Hall Park, trying to get us 14 million, right?
14.2.
Oh, 14.2, okay. Yes. So, and as you know, the Summer Youth Employment Program is a great program that attracts a lot of interest. We have 130,000 young people who applied this year, and enough money for about 35,000 jobs. So, hopefully by the September meeting, we can tell you about how we did when the budget's adopted this year. Any questions? Okay, now I know we have a special presentation to some of the long-serving executive committee members and to Joe, so.
Yeah, so if I could set the stage for that. When the executive committee met, we met off-site and we also met here as our first executive committee. One of the first topics of business, obviously, was to recognize those who served faithfully as members here, those who served in leadership positions to really drive the business of the board. And really, we wanted to make sure that we recognize that, understand the importance of that service, and certainly look forward to fulfilling those shoes. So we wanted to present some certificates to those individuals that serve faithfully. So I'm going to ask that Joe help me. Okay. Don't worry, I'm going to put my jacket on. I feel like a wimp. I'm the only guy that took their jacket off. All the guys have their suit jackets on. But the certificates that we're going to present is going to read as such. Department of Youth and Community Development with the New York City Community Action Board hereby presents this certificate in great appreciation of the many years you have graciously given to the Community Action Program. Through your hard work as a member of the Neighborhood Advisory Board and the Community Action Board, your efforts on behalf of those in need in our community have helped make New York City a better place for all. Presented on this day, June 12th, 2014, signed by Commissioner Bill Shaw. So, oh, he made it so easy for me.
Yes.
Okay. First one is Javanka Conyers.
That's right. Yeah, the photo. The executive photo?
You guys, be careful, I'm full.
Want to look in my direction?
Okay, good. All right, you're pulling double duty. You're taking pictures and film.
It's very versatile.
Is that what the one you know? I didn't know that. You must be.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Carol Wilkins. I'm sorry.
Stay here. Right?
Right. And this one is special for one of the outgoing executive committee members. I'm happy to present this to Margot Brown Tustin. Take your time, Margot. We're waiting.
Thank you.
Let's give them all a hand. No, I'd like him to stand. We have one more. Yeah. We have one more. So this particular award, I'd like to present to the gentleman who's chaired this board for a number of years. I have a deep respect for this individual. He's passionate about the work here. And it certainly, as I was appointed chair, has continually supported me and given me some insight as to how I can be a focal point and be instrumental in moving this forward along. So really, and I like everybody to stand because this is years of service. So if everybody can stand and present this.
Be careful getting off.
I'm going to read this plaque. It gives me great pleasure to join your Community Action Board colleagues and the Department of Youth and Community Development in thanking you for your 3 decades of service to New York City. 3 decades. Through the work on behalf of the Community Action Program in almost 10 years as CAB Chair, you have contributed significantly to DYC's mission of bringing needed resources and services to low-income communities across the city. Your tireless efforts are a terrific example of our residents' personal dedication to lifting up others and making our city more fair, equitable, and just for everyone. On behalf of all New Yorkers, thank you for your leadership and commitment. I offer my best wishes for continued success in all of your endeavors. Sincerely signed by Mayor Bill de Blasio.
That's what it is.
I'm just going to ask that.
Careful of my stand in front.
Jason.
I know, don't skip me.
Okay, could you folks compress yourselves a little bit? Okay, perhaps. Okay, that's fine. That's good. I'll do a few of these. Great, thank you very much.
I know Joe wanted to. Yeah. Sorry guys, I had to take the jacket.
This is going to be a 30-second thing. Everybody has already heard many stories. There's nothing like a brotherhood, or a sisterhood, or a family, and I've always considered us the good guys in a family. And there's nothing that moved me more than becoming the chair as this moment of leaving the chair. And so I'd like to give Greg a little gift. For fair disclosure, this does not come from DYCD money. But it's a little gift from one chair to another to show that this is a true succession, transition, and it's all family.
I appreciate it.
And like I told him a minute ago, I actually looked as young as he did when he started. That's the bad news.
And that is going to be pictures of progression from now until 10 years. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Another hand for Joe. Okay, so moving on with board business. Next up is the executive committee report, which should be listed in your packet. I'm going to go through it rather quickly. Some of the areas I touched upon. Carolyn, since you're here and it's listed in that report, is now a good time to discuss?
As you all see, we have videotaping today of the meeting. This is the first session of the meeting will be videotaped, and eventually we will move to webcasting. This is because of a new piece of legislation the City Council passed last December, and that became effective earlier this spring. And basically, the idea is to make meetings that are subject to the open meetings law more accessible to the public, so that people who can't actually be here physically can still know what happened. That's basically the gist of it. Hopefully, it won't be disruptive, and it won't be off-putting to anybody. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Carolyn. So present with the meeting, obviously, is myself, Melissa Devel Ortiz, who's the second vice chair, Sandy Myers, who's our third vice chair, Joseph Pierre, first vice chair, Claire Phillip, who's our secretary, and Jason Price, who's our parliamentarian. We went over a couple of things. As you may have noticed, the agenda tweaked a little bit. Just another way to just keep the meeting flowing, respectful of everyone's time. So obviously we want to, as much as possible, keep the meeting to an hour, but we thought it'd be helpful if we can just change the structure, put it in categories so you know what to expect in terms of the flow of the meeting and the certain topics that are going to be discussed. We also talked about the schedule and the summer meetings that are going to take place, which is going to end up being obviously one of our action items that we're going to talk about shortly thereafter. The committee chairs obviously reviewed their activities, and then in terms of the new business, I've already touched upon this. As a result of kind of our off-site meeting, some of the things that we thought would be helpful to the meeting, including the financials being sent out a little bit earlier. Go-forward meetings, we want to include some presentations, which actually is going to start today, from some of the programs that DYCD funds and some of the programs that you're involved with, so you can see firsthand some of the progress and success of some of the programs that are taking place. We also strategically talked about how we're going to engage the NABs, get more participation from the NAB chairs to come to our meeting and have us reciprocate and attend their meetings. So that gives you a little flavor of some of the things that we talked about. Again, just to get the meetings more engaged and just to continue the partnerships between the Community Action Board and NABs and certainly DYCD. Any questions on anything I discussed, any of the feedback I just discussed in terms of the executive committee report?
Did you discuss anything in reference to vacancies?
We did, and I believe that's going to be addressed in one of the committee reports. Were you concerned about vacancies in particular?
Yeah, and the fact that for so many years, a lot of communities have not been represented.
Right.
Because elected officials are not doing what they're supposed to do, which is to make the appointments. And I don't know, the agency has worked hard, I know that for a fact, in trying to improve the number of vacancies each and every year. But for some reason, it never gets up to where it needs to be in order to make this agency and this board function more effectively.
So we did discuss that in committee. We do have some ideas of how we might address those vacancies, and I think we have an action plan that will certainly address that. As Joe said, a lot of the work takes place in the committee, so we hope to see some resolutions of that within a reasonable time. I appreciate you bringing that up. So we have two action items under the executive committee report. One being the meeting schedule, which is in your packet, which is, thanks to DYCD, Sam Nichols is pretty much scheduled out until May of 2015. So you see the list of the next scheduled CAB meetings along with the committee meetings, worked around all of the various holidays. And then item 2 under that is authorizing the executive committee to meet on behalf of the board during the summer of 2014 as outlined in the bylaws. Any questions about the schedule or the meeting in the summer before we vote? Do I entertain a motion to accept the calendar for 2014, 2015 for the
So
full
moved.
board meetings?
Second.
It's been moved and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I apologize. Please state your name. All right, first day as chair.
Gloria,
I got to get acclimated to this.
Gloria
Thank you.
Benfield.
Gloria Benfield, motion, and seconded by Margot Brown. Thank you. Take me to task and make sure I follow through on that. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next up will be the committee reports. I'll go in the order that's listed on the agenda. We'll first have Sandy, who's going to go through our participation committee report.
Great, thank you. So the minutes are in your packet as well. This, again, was since our first meeting as new chairs, went over what the committee will be working on over the upcoming year. So the participation committee, in addition to doing what it's done in the past, which is filling the NAB vacancies, we discussed doing more advocacy around CSDG, that once we have a better sense of how the budget will be this year, we might be involved in some more advocacy efforts. So traditionally, we've partnered with DYCD, who plays more of an educational role, and us as the community members and advocates have done advocacy and lobbying around that. So if that's something that interests folks today, I'll do another plug. You can join the participation committee and be involved in those efforts. And then we also went over the fundraising workshop that DYC organized in all 5 boroughs over the last couple of months that were successful, and we helped get the word out about that. And then we also discussed what we saw earlier, the appreciation of outgoing members. So, I'll pass it over back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Any questions, feedback on the committee report from the participation committee? Okay, next up, we're going to have the program committee report. Melissa.
Hi, everybody. So on May the 6th, we had a great meeting with a presentation by a wonderful group coming out of the Bronx, Mount Hope organization, and they have all their information is in your packet. But they have a wonderful health program where they actually engage local bodega to change their the products that they sell so that they can promote healthy alternatives to children in nearby schools, which was really great. I was very impressed. And we had a lot of back and forth discussion and gave a lot of suggestions. One of the other things that came out, as you can read in the minutes, was that we're going to be having a symposium scheduled for Tuesday on August the 12th, from poverty to opportunity, and that's going to be in Albany, right?
No, in Manhattan.
Oh, in Manhattan.
New York
I'm sorry.
Coastal.
Manhattan. That's right, New York Coastal. And that was really it. As far as the future, I would really like to hear, I guess, from our members, and maybe make sure that we go out of our way to select one group per community board, per NDA. So to make sure that all NDAs are represented during the programs committee. So if you could make any suggestions, would be greatly appreciated, and make sure, like Sammy said, to sign up at the front to be on the programs committee. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Any question, feedback on the program committee report? Okay, next up will be Mr. Joseph Pierre, who's going to go through our governance committee report.
Good afternoon, people. Welcome to the new board, the first meeting for this new executive. As you may know, and you would have had in front of you the package, and you would see that we have we met, and there was some recognition of members who past and present, and felt then that that was very good to do, and we look forward to a continuing good year for 2014-2015. Also, I just want to highlight that Carolyn did bring out what the city council has done, and you would see now that we have a camera that would record the events. But it also helps with transparency. It would also force elective members and other people who are responsible for having their people here at these meetings present. It would also force them to take a look at public TV. So it would be a good thing to continue this process as the city has seen it fit to do. So we look forward to doing that with you and partnering with the city. Joe, I would like you to please bring the people here present up to date as to the state audit and what the state recommended.
I'm going to talk about the audit, and I can say what they recommended.
Sure. Mike Bobbitt, Assistant Commissioner for Community Development Operations. So, as was reported at the last Community Action Board meeting, we had our triennial review with the New York State Department of State. We are still awaiting a written report, but at the close of their visit, members of New York State Department of State gave us some kind of a summation of their observations from having interviewed staff, gone through participant files, program files, visited a sample of the delegate agencies, receiving the results of the surveys that members of the board did, as well as participants directly served by CSBG. And overall, their findings are very favorable, so the board can feel pleased and relieved. They acknowledge us for having taken what they call the core, the Comprehensive Organizational Review and Evaluation, very seriously, responded as thoroughly, thoughtfully, and promptly as we could, so it reduced their questions coming on site. There's one programmatic recommendation I'll speak to, and there were a couple of suggestions, operational considerations that Joe can speak to that relate specifically to the CAB. Some may recall in preparation, anticipation for the core, Joe and I met with the board and we discussed how DYCD translates Roma, results-oriented management accountability, and the whole thinking about results and evidence that all CSBG must do, how we translate into our programs, how it's baked into our reporting, our data management, etc. So I'm anticipating this written recommendation about ways that we might further explicate that so that delegate agencies understand and buy into being a part of community action around the country. So we look forward to their advice and suggestions about that. And we've talked with New York State Community Action Association about ways to try to propel and further that. Other than that, programmatically, they're fine. I don't want to be too ahead of actually reviewing the written report, but we had a very favorable review, so we're pleased and relieved for that. So there were a few.
Okay, so like I said, so we're going to get the written report in, I guess, a couple of weeks. They came up with a couple of observations. One in terms of the Roma goals, which is the national standards that CSBG is based on. For those of you that came to the CAB training a couple of weeks ago, we now include that in much more detail in the CAB training. For those of you who weren't able to make it, don't be sad because I'm going to do it again over the summer and we'll have fun, right? Now, in terms of a couple of the operational things that are really minor, one thing is that they said repeatedly is how impressed they were about how we operated the CAB and the CSBG program. They said that repeatedly, and they go around the state. In particular, the way a lot of you got on the board, the election process, a lot of you got on the board, that Sam operates and helps devise and make sure it works smoothly. He got particular kudos, and they said that it was like a model that should be like replicated all over the country. That was like, they were just amazing. But they did say we had a couple things. So like tonight when Mr. Philip read that all the names and then said excused, we never did that before. They want us to start doing that so that it's in the actual record that it says excused. And then there were one or two other things that you're going to notice over the next year. So had we have had a letter, if we had a new person that came to the board and that person had a letter, you would then have to just vote, actually have a vote that's on the record to recognize that person. And then all of you, when your terms come up to an end, instead of just automatically how we reappoint you, you're all going to be, when you're brought forward again, you're all going to have to be then recognized again for another 3-year term. So like little minor things like that came about. Otherwise, it was pretty good. We'll see actually what happens when we get the actual report.
Good.
So really, it was nothing. Much of nothing, just minor. Good.
Great. Under new business. As you would notice, under new business, DYCD would be providing more training. That's coming. And we'll also look at what we're doing, we would also be doing is asking the CAB to make some adjustments to the bylaws for video recording for the DYCD website. As you know, some months ago when we made a change to the bylaws, when it came to videotaping, we did not know that the city was also thinking about this same process. Now that the city has gone ahead and done so, we will make adjustments to the bylaws as they now stand. The other thing that I just want you to be aware of, and seeing that you looked at it, the chair asked the DYCD staff to clarify the following questions. One, what is an advisory board? And what is the role and function of the CAB as an advisory board? Those were the two questions that was asked by the chair to the DYCD, and we look forward to hearing what's the breakout and how it does fall out. So, seeing that this was it, I want to say that thank you, and we look forward to most people getting involved with the governance committee, because the governance committee really sits and look at all things, the functioning of the organization, the rules. It helps to work with the rules book